Here's how to use Framer for Dummies. Of course, you are not a dummy. This is just me being dumb and trying to make a video. So first off, you want to create a new design file and select one of the frames, or you can make a frame any size you want. Just do it this way. I don't know. It's easier for me to do it this way. I'm doing an iPhone 17. I'm going to rename the file so I know what it is. I just named it Dummies. And yeah, so to add a grid, usually a phone grid has 4 columns with a 24 by 24, I believe, margin. So 24 margin by 24 gutter. It's either 24 or 25. I can't remember, honestly. Yeah, it's 25. No, wait, 24. And yeah, so you have your frame thing, and then if you want to hide the guides, just do Shift G and it hides the guides. I just told you how to do that so you know how to do it for phones. And here is me just making a button. So what you want to do is type something, literally, and you want to left click or right click and then select auto layout, or you can do Shift A, which adds an auto layout to your item that you're trying to make a button for. And yeah, so then once you do that, you add a fill color, change the colors around. Just make sure if you're wanting the button to change sizes when you're typing, make sure you have the text selected instead of the frame while you're typing, because if it is the text that you're typing into but the frame doesn't change, it's most likely you're typing into the frame rather than you're typing into the text. So I added a 50 radius for the button, and I was just playing around here with sizing since I had a project earlier with 120 by 33. So this would be the normal button size, so it would be 120 by 33, so 120 width by 33 height with a 16-point font. So that's pretty much what it would be if it was a normal button, but I'm leaving it here and I'm centering it. And yeah, so we got the base of our first state of the button done. Yay, buttons. So you can go to the top there, right click to create component, or you can just right click the thing again and then just create component. There's a shortcut for there. I don't know what it is. I'm sorry. And then you can go create a variant. You could rename this variant, of course, rename it default. And then you create another variant, change the colors of this one, and this would be the hover state or the clicked state, whichever one you want to do. So this is just buttons 101, I guess. So I'm just changing the colors here, inverting it from black and white to red and white and black. I don't know, the colors, man. Yeah, so this is just me making the buttons. So the variant is basically just another state of the button. So when you hover over it, it would change into this color, and we'll see that in a second once this is done. So I'm just adding a outline and things and just moving it over to the side and prototyping it. So when you're prototyping a button, you have to make sure you drag the blue plus sign down and then go on hovering or on click, whichever one, and then smart animate, because that gives it an ease and out animation instead of just being point blank. And here I just moved everything to the side, renamed everything, and then I dragged the button from the assets panel, which shows you every asset that you've made, which is a component, and I centered it into the page. And then there we go, we have a hover state for a button. Yay. So over here is all like the frames and the pages and everything for your projects. So what you want to do, if you have something that you want to be edited into the phone frame or the desktop, whatever, you have to make sure that it's in that frame. So the button that I just added to the frame is in the frame, so I'll see it in the prototype, whatever. Pages are like little layers, but layers that aren't attached to each other. So just you can organize your shit through the pages, please. Yay. So yeah, now we're gonna make icons. So icons have many different sizes and shapes. So right now I'm just making a file for a 32 by 32 icon, and I'm pretty sure it is a 0 margin with a 25 gutter for both horizontal, like columns and rows, but then you also want to add a 1 pixel grid. Hold on, let me get my notes here. I'm pretty sure that's right. I am 100% sure. Yeah, so if you're doing any kind of icon in Figma, you want to make a 1 pixel grid, or you can just leave it. You don't have to, because when you zoom in, there's a grid. But the rows and columns, you have to add those. So for a 32 by 32, it is a 0 margin with a 25 gutter, and for 24 by 24, it's a 20 gutter, 48 by 48, 40, and then 64 is like 50. I don't know why my teacher gave me that math. You can ask him. But yeah, so here's the file where it's definitely easier than building something in Illustrator with an icon, but of course I might have to move there because Figma for me expires I think around April. But yeah, so here is just me making a little face icon just to kind of make a little thing for you guys to show you how to make icons and component them and everything. So I like to stay inside the lines. I don't like to go outside them much, but like I'm pretty sure like you can just design to the edge of the frame. But yeah, so like here's little guy, he just do little thing, he look up and down. That's literally all he do. But yeah, so I'll show you how to component them and add them to little pages and prototype everything together. So right now I'm just grouping the icons so that way we can put them into a component, and that way we can just not animate them, but we're putting them into a component so they're easier to change later on for further use. So we can just drag one asset in and change the variant. So we get the faces, we component them, we group them, and then we name the variants properties to up and down or whatever you want. So icons can be whatever depending on the project, depending on what you're doing with them. And here's how they look on the page. So I'm just showing you here how they change between in the components. So you add it to your page. You can scale them up to even after you've made them as a component. So here I'm just showing you how they change when you change the variant. So it just makes it easier to kind of just do things like add them to buttons or put them on places like navigation bars or something. It just makes life easier, okay? And so you can scale. You just have to make sure you hold shift or else it'll squish and squash, whatever, right? But yeah, now we're gonna make a little prototype, and I'm gonna show you how to prototype with buttons, icons, whatever. I will probably make a video later on how to make buttons with icons or buttons in general, like a full video. This is just a little crash course. So I'm designing the page here. We have the button, we have the icon. We can even rename the button as well to something whatever. So next button, and you can also create different states and hover states for the buttons as well. You just have to add another property and then change those property names with the variants. So I'm going to show you that in a sec, but here's just me designing the page. I did design another icon for the face just for the pages. But anyway, here, you can duplicate the buttons and then you can turn them into separate variants, but you just have to add another property into the component and then change the new buttons to that component property, if that makes sense. And then you can just change the colors. It doesn't change the original, but you have to make sure you rename them, or else Figma's not gonna pick it up as like a separate button. So as you see here, you can change it from the black to the purple after you made the variants and everything, and after you made the prototypes and all that stuff. So yeah, and then to get the little face guy, I made that a line, so then we have to, yeah, there we go. We got a little face, so then after that, you have your pages set up with your buttons, your icons, whatever. What you want to do is go to prototype, drag the blue dot to the other page, and then do the same thing that we did with the buttons. Instead, on click, smart animate, ease in, ease out, whatever, pick whichever one. I love the gentle animation, it's my favorite here. But as you see, the face changes, the button changes. I need to go back and fix the button, but you know, it does things. It does cool things. It animates the page, and you can also see this is how you change the page when you want to in Figma, whatever. It's easy. It's pretty simple. So this would be how you do like navigations and stuff like that. So yeah, page buttons. So now let's go on to scrolling. Scrolling is very easy as well. I'm just gonna make a couple cards here. So for scrolling, you would frame a bunch of cards or a bunch of your elements, but you have to make sure that frame is also inside the frame that you're designing in, like a phone, a desktop, a tablet, whatever. So I'm just making frames here, but pretty much what you do is you get your groups, you get your cards, you get your items, whatever you want functioning or to scroll, and you'd frame it. Once you take the frame, you would put the frame into the other frame. I know a lot of frames, right? It should be called framer, but that's another video. Anyway. So for this, I'm just doing little face cards, and when you put them into the frame, you have to do overflow scrolling, either horizontal or vertical, depending on which one you work with. So with that, it's just pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but you have to make sure the frame is like the full size, or not the full size, but it's smaller than the content, or else it won't work with the overflow scrolling. So if the content is longer than the frame, it won't scroll, but if it's bigger than the frame, it will scroll. You have your little things. What you want to do is you want to select everything after you group them, of course, because I don't group things until I finish or whatever. I don't know my workflow anymore at this point. But yeah, so I take my groups. Of course, you'd want to rename them or whatever, but you'd right click and then you'd frame selection, and then bam, you have a selection, and then I've duplicated it, but you drag it, as you see, it would clip into the frame there, and then centered it so you can see the changes. And what you want to do is hold shift, and I think it's option shift when you're scaling it down, which would scale them both collectively like that. and you have to make sure that it's like wrapped around the one frame you're designing on, and then go to prototype, overflow scrolling, and then horizontal. That's how you do horizontal scroll. Pretty easy, pretty fun. And then you can do the same thing but with vertical scrolling, which I'll show you in a second here. Scroll, yay, finally. So what you want to do is you want to take your frame and then you want to like scale it down to however size you want. I don't want to space this out anymore, so what I did was I just scaled them down to the first middle two faces, so that way we can just see the vertical scroll. But pretty much it's the same thing with the horizontal scroll. Make sure the frame is smaller than the content, and then go to overflow scrolling and do vertical scroll and make sure everything is inside the frame that you're adding them to. Like right now, I wasn't sure if they were added. Let me see here. Yeah, it's definitely like they were outside of the frame. But yeah, so pretty much we got this little scroll thing, and like look at them, they scroll. Yay. Yeah, look at these guys. They're just so chill. They're so happy. They do stuff, right? They move. They look around. They're just staring at your eye, at your face. I don't know. But yeah, so that's pretty much like the basics crash course of Figma for dummies, I guess. That's like mostly what I know how to do Figma, how to use things. I would probably do a more in-depth videos on stuff if you want, but that's how all the things I know from Figma as far as my knowledge goes and everything. But yeah, let me know what you want to know in the comments, and I'll definitely help you out, or I'll definitely make a video on it.